Hey developers, welcome back to my channel. In my previous video, we have covered some of the basics including operators, control structures and loops. Today, we are going to dive even deeper into the language and take a look at functions in Dart. We'll start by covering the basic of functions, including how to define function, what is the syntax, and how to call them. From there, we'll explore nested functions and how they can be used to structure your code. We'll also take a look at parameterized and name functions, also positional and optional positional, how you can use them to pass the data into your functions. Next up, we'll dive into arrow functions, which are shorthand way of writing functions in Dart. And finally, we will take a look at typedef, which allows you to define custom types for your functions. By the end of this video, you will have a good understanding of how to use functions in Dart to write clean, concise, and effective code. So, grab your code editor and let's get started. Functions in Dart are a reusable block of code that perform a specific task. Syntax of function is return type, name of the function, and parameter list and the block of code. For example, int is a return type, name of the function is add. My add function is adding two values 4 plus 5, which will be result 9. To call a function, just write the name of your function and the round brackets like I did, or we are printing our values into the console. That's why I'm using print statement. Nested functions in Dart are those functions that are defined inside another function. Main already a function, right? I'm going to define my add function inside of a main function and just call it. These two functions called nested functions, a function inside of a function, right? Let me define another function add2 outside of a main and another function calling func, which I'm going to use just for call. And when I call this add2, it's not giving me any error. But when I call add function, it's giving me error because add isn't referenced. Why? Add is defined inside of a main function. Okay. That's why add is limited to the main function scope only. I cannot call this add function inside of any function. Positional parameterized functions in Dart are the parameters that are passed to a function in order in the order in which they are declared in the function signature. These positional parameters are in a specific order. Let's see the example. Here's a function positional func, which is carrying three parameters, int a, int b, string name. Now, whenever I call this function, I have to pass three values in the same order as I define my parameters in this function. First, I have to define integer value 4, 5, and then a string value. If I mess this order, like 4, then string value, then integer value, this will give me error. This is called the positional parameterized function. Optional positional parameterized functions are those parameters that are declared with the default value or considered to be null. But in this case, you have to take care of the order specific order. For example, I have defined another parameter bool is done equals to false. Now, this bool is done is the optional parameter. Why? Because I wrap this parameter inside of a square brackets and give a default value false. Now, when I call this function, if I don't give the value of is done to while calling this function, it will not give me error because by default it will show false. Okay. Or if you don't want to give it any default value, you can make it null by putting question mark like this. Okay. But you have to take care of the order. Named parameters are parameters that are passed to a function by explicitly specifying the name of the parameter and its value. Name parameters allows you to provide values for parameters in any order. You don't have to take care of the order specific, regardless of the order in which they are declared in the function signature. To declare a name parameter, you just need to use curly brackets in the function. Let's see the example. In this function, there are 3 parameters which is considered to be null but wrapped in curly brackets because these are named parameters. When I call this function, you can see I'm passing the values as well as there are name of the parameters appearing. A value 10, name queen is then false. You can also give the default value as well, or you can specify the required keyword as well before the parameters. In this case, the parameters is required. You have to give the value now. If you define a parameter outside of a curly brackets, int p, you can see there is no parameter name, only the value of that parameter. Okay. A function returns a function. Let me write first, then I'll explain you deeply. This calculator function takes another function as an input parameter and returns a function. The input parameter another func is a function that takes an integer as an input and returns an integer. The calculator function returns a function that takes an integer as input and returns an integer. However, in this case, the return function from calculator is a closure that always returns the value 5. Okay, regardless of the input. This closure takes an integer as an input, but it does not make use of the input value. As you can see here, let me create another function right above this function. Now this time I'm passing this add function. Calculator function is returning add function which itself returns a 5. These both things are same, okay? This calculator function is accepting a parameter which itself a function. Int function int another func, okay? So my calculator function is returning a function which accepts integer a parameter, and this unnamed function return another func, which is a parameter of calculator function. I hope you are not confusing. When I call this calculator in my main function, I have to pass a function as a input value. So I pass add function like this. I know, this is quite confusing, but when we start Flutter course and do some practical applications and make some functions and pass values to it, things will make sense, okay? So don't worry about it, just understand the syntax and just know how the function returns the functions, okay? And when you print this calculator add, it's give you the calculator closure. And when you print this add function with value, it will print your value. It will print your sum value. Like 5 plus 5 equals to 10. Okay? Let's talk about typedef. Typedef in Dart is a way to define a new type alias. It allows you to give a name to a function type, making it easier to use complex function types in your code. A typedef is defined by using keyword typedef followed by a function signature and a new name for a function type. For example, let's see the previous example. As you can see, we have a type int function int, which takes an integer input and returns an integer, right? So instead of writing again and again this type, you just need to write keyword typedef and name of this int function and just write this type like this. Now you just need to write this int function instead of writing int function brackets then int, okay? So this is called the typedef. Arrow function in Dart is also known as short function or a fat arrow function. It is concise, a way to write a single expression function. Arrow function can simplify your code by reducing the amount of boilerplate syntax required to define a function. Like instead of writing multiple lines of code, you just write like this. And you just no need to write return keyword because arrow function knows this a plus b is returning the addition. That's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new about functions, nested functions, and all about functions. We have covered a lot of ground today, and I'm sure you are already feeling more confident in your ability to write Dart code. So don't forget to stay tuned for the next video in our Dart series. I know I am quite late, but I'm still uploading more and more videos where we will continue to explore even more advanced topics. And if you like this video, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Your support means world to me and helps me to create even more great content for you. So until the next time, happy coding, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.